On this episode of ITAV, counterfeit products and the impact they have on the security of our networks as well as manufacturers, and AI, which jobs they will take over and which ones they probably should. All this and more next on ITAV.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ITAV, episode 37, recorded Friday, December 20th, 2019. Touch panel by Wix.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Sure. Sound extraordinary.
This is ITAV, the monthly look at the IT and the AV industry. My name is Jamal Brett. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered. First and foremost, Mr. Chris Fitzsimmons from By Wix. Welcome, sir.
Good morning. Thank you.
Also with us is Mr. Michael Drainer from Drainer Technologies. Welcome, sir.
Hello, everyone. Happy holidays, New Year, all that kind of fun stuff. We're going to have a good time here.
All right. And last but not least, a buddy that I've actually met through a mutual friend here, Mr. Chris Netto, Sean Reed. Sean is from Astroman AV. Welcome, sir.
Welcome, everybody. Nice to meet you.
And you should go to Sean's website simply for the fact that you've got really cool cartoons in AV. Right there. That's his. If you're watching the video, that's the website. If you're not, you go to his website. We'll have a link to this site. So first story here, guys, comes to us from PC Magazine. Cisco got an injunction actually against Chinese counterfeiters from the article, which is quoting the Wall Street Journal. The temporary injunction was granted following a lawsuit filed by Cisco in New York. It pointed to 4 specific Chinese manufacturers in Shenzhen, which the company accused of producing counterfeit versions of its transceivers. Chris, I want to start with you on this one. There's a number of articles that have been written in this last year. There was a huge seizure, I think, over the summer that had some By-Amp products, but some other audio companies' products that people secured through various means, and they were all counterfeit. Yes. From a manufacturer standpoint, how big of a deal is this? This counterfeit stuff?
It's a big deal. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. I think we've been relatively fortunate, both as a company, as an industry, that it hasn't been a bigger deal. And I think there's a couple of reasons why it hasn't been a bigger deal, but it really can be a real problem. I mean, we obviously stand by our product. We warranty them. We provide customers with support for them. And so when we come across a customer that has a counterfeit product, probably through no fault of their own, we're still going to do what we're going to do, try and support them. We may not realize it's not a real product for some time. We may find out, unless we actually get down to what serial number is this device, which isn't always the first question a support guy is going to ask. It may be, hey, what is it? It's just a Sierra 40, ABB, BT4, whatever, or it's a parlay microphone. And so it can take time to figure out what's going on. There was a big one, I think, that happened at the end of last year that kind of surfaced in March with multiple audio vendors involved, like some Yamaha and some Sennheiser and some Shure and some whatever, and they were all relatively low complexity products. Except for, I think there was some like DBX mixer amps and stuff like that in there. And I think to some extent By-Amp is protected by the fact that a lot of our stuff is very complicated. Like if you look, I don't know whether you've had a chance to look inside a new mic, like a parlay microphone, the new beam tracking mics we have, they're very, very, very complicated. Yeah. And so to make it, even to pretend to make it, you have got to have made it. And so it's got to come out the backside of the same factory that the original was made in, or something like that. The dark side of the factory, they say. I mean, if you go to, and you've ever been to Shenzhen or Shanghai, and in Shanghai, there's actually quite a famous counterfeit market. And you can go in there and buy handbags or whatever, and there's lots of sketchy individuals with market stalls. But they're real handbags. They just come out of the night shift, not the day shift. I'm not sure that's what's happening here with the Cisco transceivers, because they have to, unless they're literally DOA when they show up, you don't know, right? You plug it in and the lights come on and you think, okay, we're good. And then it works for a bit and then it doesn't. It's really tough. It's a real problem. But the other thing, obviously, By manufactures most of its stuff here. Certainly the Biamp core, the Tessera line and all that stuff is all manufactured in Beaverton. So we don't have that element of risk. With the recent acquisitions we've made, obviously that's changing a little bit. So it's something we're going to have to track. We use ODM suppliers like a lot of other manufacturers do to make stuff abroad. We make it in the Far East. We make it in Shenzhen. So, it's obviously the obvious downside is it's a financial one for us, but there's also a reputational cost, which I think for most commercial audio manufacturers is a bigger deal, right? I mean, really, we're not talking about thousands of units costing us millions of dollars. We're talking about damage to our reputation and credibility if people get hold of fake gear from a vendor and it doesn't work, right? And, customers not always going to accept, oh, it's a fake. They see a logo and they say, oh, that didn't work. It's about the perception and the reliability of the product.
And this gets to a deeper thing though about distribution, right? And buying through approved channels. And right. I saw this in a previous life as a manufacturer. Sennheiser, they built their Evolution wireless right here in the United States. Like you said, there's parts that come from all around the world, but it's manufactured in New Mexico. We still saw counterfeits out on the market on a regular basis.
Bits of the plastic can get out, all that kind of stuff, right?
That's exactly it. So, I went into a church one time, they were in all kinds of issues, and we start going down the line and good product, get to one. And I've never seen this firmware version before. Where did this come from? You start making some calls and it's like, yeah, that's not our product. That's a counterfeit. And, so you talk to the customer, well, where did you buy this? Oh, I bought it on Amazon, or I bought it on Craigslist or Facebook or whatever the case may be.
And we're seeing reputable sources of AV.
Yeah, exactly. and so when it always scares me when I see AV manufacturers start to open their distribution channels to places where anybody can get it, right? Where you're not authorizing these dealers, you're not quantifying them, vetting them. And, it's a dog eat dog world out there for the manufacturing industry. Everybody wants to get their product and service out, but we've got to keep this stuff tight. And the reason that Cisco has run into this is because you can go buy transceivers. It's a secondary part to them. A switch, an enterprise switch, you have to be an authorized partner in order to acquire and to sell. And the folks that are buying those things understand that I'm buying through authorized distributors who are getting these things legitimately. But a transceiver, hey, why do I want to go spend $2,000 on a 10 gig transceiver? I'm going to go buy this one for a few $100 and see if it works. And they're willing to hedge their risk on that. I think it's very good that Cisco's making these strides. Hopefully they'll tighten up that distribution a little bit. And even those secondary parts would be able to channel through those partners who are supporting them as a manufacturer and bring greater validity to the product line at large.
All right, so let me bring up something here. And Sean, I'm going to bring you on this.
Sure.
The financial impact it has to the manufacturers I get, right? And the time and effort wasted to the customers. Then there's the other aspect of this. I'm not throwing stones at any country or anybody, but understand that if it is a counterfeit product, there is then the risk of a back door somewhere being opened up, right? And the vast majority of AV products and obviously networking gear, this is all connected to the network, local and the network at large, the WAN, the internet. What are the risks then if a counterfeit product then finds its way, whether it's a Cisco switch or if it's somebody else's device, finds their way onto your network, and then suddenly not only is it counterfeit and you've wasted the money because it's not a real product or it's not the manufacturer's real product, but now you've opened yourself up to some sort of Trojan horse type device. How do you mitigate that?
That
buy
is
things on eBay.
Don't buy things on eBay, right? Well, like you said, you can find them on legitimate channels like Amazon. Or what I've seen, I'm not going to mention any names. I worked for a large retailer some years ago who does millions of dollars in business, and they buy a lot of things gray market and repackage them and print their own warranty cards and things to hide that they're gray market and got from sideways channels. And I remember one time, CEO from one of their biggest lines came in and threw a big fuss in front of everybody about, you guys buying gray market, such and such and such. And the owner of the company just told him, I buy $10 million a year from you. You can either let me buy what I want to buy, or I'll take my business elsewhere and get it to somebody else. They throw around their weight. And so there's always going to be that opportunity for counterfeit and gray market items to get into the chain. Companies have gotten a lot better about it. But what I've seen on my end when I'm working with the integrator or project managing is that it really comes down to all the people in between. If you're working with a reputable integrator who's buying from, ideally directly from the manufacturer, from our authorized reseller, and you're dealing with an end client or end user who's committed to making sure they're doing it the right way, you don't have these problems. When you get into perhaps smaller businesses who have a smaller budget, or even government situations where you have a purchaser who's just looking at the bottom line, these things can happen. But at least in my experience, I've seen it very rarely on the integration side, only in extreme circumstances. Whereas usually someone's just like, hey, I've got this number, you got to make it fit this number. Someone higher up starts cutting those corners. So,
Michael, when it comes to getting stuff on your on site, and Sean, feel free to jump in on this too. If you would discover a counterfeit product or something you suspect is, what are the steps that you should take? I mean, if you're a level 1, level 2 tech, and you're like, hey, wait a minute, they spelled Biamp wrong. All right,
they put an L in it.
Like my buddy, Kevin Iselli from Crestron, his famous one is Cestron, right? And what are the steps that you should take? I mean, are you immediately going to the PM of the product? You obviously there's a hierarchy here, and you have direct, you have a boss that you report to. But how are we handling this in the field, Michael?
Oh, you're asking me. I'm sorry. I thought you said Sean. So first of all, if it's a reputable integrator, they're going to take the appropriate steps to one, backtrack that channel. Where did they get that product? Did they buy it through the correct channels? If they did buy it through the correct channels, they're going to deal with those channels appropriately. But at the end of the day, they're going to do the right thing by their client and make sure that that product is fully replaced and that it is completely authorized and 100% warranted. The reputable guys are going to do that. What we see are some of these fly-by-night operations, what we like to call trunk slammers out there, that are buying through secondary and third-level distribution, buying product, and then just selling their integration services. And these are typically, like Chris and Sean said, on those open bids where there's not a lot of qualifications. It's strictly a bill of material here, sell me this stuff. And they literally go out and shop for the cheapest price on distribution and sell that product without really understanding where it's coming from and being able to stand behind it. So, the first step is just to make sure that your client is 100% cared for. You take that product out, you put an authorized product in, and then as an integrator, you deal with that moving forward, because ultimately you're responsible for delivering that solution. Now, if somebody else is providing it, then you're still that intermediary in doing the right thing. In my opinion, operating with a level of ethics and integrity is key in dealing with these types of situations.
You also need to call me, by the way, if you come across a fake or a counterfeit or a suspicious device from a particular manufacturer.
Absolutely.
You need to tell that manufacturer, because they need to know too, right? Because if there's a problem, if there's an issue with this factory or the supply chain, we need to know about it so we can fix that too, right?
And I don't know about Biamp.
Someone to tell us if they found a counterfeit Biamp product, I would be hoping that the second phone call would be to us.
It usually is. I've noticed. Recent years, I was on a project where we had about 24 SM58s, and I think about
that's one of the most notable counterfeits.
It's an obvious one as a counterfeit, right? It's a ubiquitous product. Everybody knows what they think. They know what it looks like, and you can get rid of. You can shift them. You can't shifting a counterfeit to Sierra Forte is a challenging.
Right. It's usually, like you said, it's not usually a complex product. You're not going to see a CP3N out there as a counterfeit, or like I said, Sierra Forte. I'm not saying there can't be, but chances are, if there is a counterfeit, it's usually just going to be the chassis with a bunch of rocks inside, rather than someone actually trying to build one to sell as a functioning piece.
I'm not going to go through the effort of counterfeiting all those parts, all those diodes. I'm just going to
put some concrete in the chassis and stick it in the box.
Exactly.
But that's a valid point that Chris makes, though, is do let the manufacturer know, because coming from the manufacturing world, what we would do is track down, okay, well, where did you acquire that product? We'd want to know that entire life cycle. And then we're going to go make test buys. and we're going to try to track that product down and figure out where it's coming from. And there's entire legal departments in these manufacturers that are responsible for tracking down this counterfeit material and shutting those channels down. And unfortunately, it is a long legal process sometimes. And when you're dealing with some of these very, very large distributors that we've already mentioned, a lot of times you're powerless unless you're willing to take steps to completely cut them off from your product lines, which could be detrimental to the manufacturer at large. And for the guys that have highly specialized stuff, such as we've mentioned, like the Crestron and Biamp and the DSP manufacturers and amplifiers, those are a little bit harder to do. But the commodity product, that's really where we're looking at, is the stuff that is commodity, it's ubiquitous. You got to keep your eyes out for that stuff. And at the end of the day, as integrators, as specifiers, and as end users, if we're dealing with authorized channels, we know where we're buying our product. We're not just buying on, Amazon and I'm trying to think because I don't want to just be critical of them, but there's a lot of other ones out there, but they are one of the largest culprits. They really are, because they don't keep good tabs on that. And it's up to the manufacturers to push that back. So do contact the manufacturers and let them know.
And yeah, Amazon's an interesting one though, right? I think we said up front, eBay bad, Amazon's usually okay. I have experienced a lot of bad stuff from Amazon these days. Like, so I don't know, you guys, Tim knows, I build and fly drones like quadcopters from parts. So I buy motors and control boards and that kind of stuff. One place I would never buy those components from is Amazon, because I don't think I've ever received a genuine component, because it's the marketplace. It's like, Walmart has a marketplace, Amazon has a marketplace. They all have this marketplace, and none of that stuff is controlled by them. It's just like it literally is a marketplace whereby there's a bunch of stores and people brought stuff in and they sell it. The owner of the marketplace doesn't care, right? It's kind of like, and their percentage hit rate is like, well, I'm going to sell a gazillion of these and make a bunch of money on all of them. If I get caught twice and my hand gets slapped by Amazon, fine. But that's clearly the thought process behind that.
Yeah, the fines never outweigh the profit.
Right.
You get suspended for a month. They're like, okay, I'll just most of those big companies have multiple DBAs. So they're like, okay, shut down that one. I've got 7 more over here.
It's kind of like watching the European Union trying to sue Facebook. It's like, oh no, $1 billion, a boo-hoo. It's exactly the same mentality.
As we wrap up this real quickly, that is the one thing I wanted to point out, is that the vast majority of the Amazon stories that I've heard are not getting it from Amazon proper, right? It is that marketplace. It's
marketplace.
It's fulfilled by a company you've never heard of. You're like, no, not buying that one. I was actually, just before we close out, I did not Google. I went onto eBay and searched for Biamp to see what popped up.
And
just for funsies. And actually, I'm pleasantly, I'm not surprised. Most of it's pre-owned, right? There's almost nothing new on here from Biamp. There's like a couple of expanders and a shrink wrap. But I was ready for there to be stuff there, and there really isn't. So I'm happy.
Although it's a great place to buy AudioFlexes.
Right? Yeah, AudioFlexes and Advantage One mic mixers.
Yeah.
I don't even know when we made that.
Here's the thing. You guys both just dated yourself. So
yes, very much so. CobraNet on AudioFlex. There you go.
There it is.
All right. Thank you so much for watching the first segment of this month's ITAV. To watch the entire episode, go by the website avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv, or click on the link below. Thanks so much.